Okay, guys, we have our first test tomorrow. So if you need a little bit more of a review, go ahead and watch this video. Feel free to pause and go back if there's anything you were confused about or if I was going too fast. So our first question is about simplifying fractions. And if you need to look back at this, this is on page 1 of your notebook. So remember that we simplify by dividing the top and the bottom number by the same thing. So for 12 and 15, I know I can divide 12 by 2 because it's even, but that's not going to work for 15 because it's not even. I know I can divide 15 by 5 because it ends in 5, but that's not going to work for 12. So the only thing I can divide both of these by is 3. I know that both of them are multiples of 3. So 3 goes into 12 4 times, and 3 goes into 15 5 times, because if you count by 3s, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. That's going to be a 5. And then the only thing I can divide 4 and 5 by is 1. And remember that if I divide by 1, that's not going to do me any good. So we're done with that question. There's another one, 6/18. 6 and 18 are both even, so I could start by dividing by 2. They also are both multiples of 3, so I could also divide by 3. But I also noticed that they're both divisible by 6. So any of those would work, but if I divide by 6, I can do this in one step instead of multiple steps. So 6 goes into itself 1 time, and 6 goes into 18 3 times. 6, 12, 18. And again, now we're done because there's nothing else that we can divide both of those by except for 1. So that is how we simplify fractions. Let's go on to question number 2. It says to sort the numbers as whole, integer, or rational. So remember that whole numbers, let's see, first of all, let's talk about where this is. This is on page 3 of your notebook if you need to go back. Whole numbers are our counting numbers. They have to be positive and they can't have any fractions or any decimals. So right away, I see that 9 is going to go in whole number because it is positive. It has no fractions, no decimals. There is another whole number here, but we're going to come back to that. There, I see an integer. Integers include whole numbers. That's why the whole number section is already inside of the integer. So 9 is technically also an integer, but we don't need to list it twice. But integers can also be negative. So they include whole numbers, but they also include the opposites of whole numbers, which are negative. They still don't have any fractions or any decimals. So these two numbers here, 6.7 and negative 1.3. One's positive, one's negative, but they both have decimals, and decimals always go in the rational number section. Now, fractions also go in the rational number section, but this one is a special type of fraction. So remember that if you see an improper fraction, you need to divide it out. This means 10 divided by 2. And 2 goes into 10 5 times with nothing left over. So because 5 is a whole number, 10 over 2 technically goes in the whole number section. So if it was just a regular fraction, like 1/4 or 3/5, something like that, or even if it was a negative fraction, it would definitely go in rational number. But if it comes out to a whole number or an integer with no fractional part left over, then you need to put it in one of those sections. Okay, so we have the whole numbers, but remember they are also integers, they are also rational numbers. So all of these are rational. That's why they're all in that rational box. Okay, let's go on to question number 3. It says, plot the following numbers on the number line and list them in order from greatest to least. So first, I'm going to underline greatest to least. And remember that out to the side, I'm going to want you to write G to L, just a symbol to your brain. And then let's go ahead and start plotting these. So negative 10, 7, 0, negative 8, and positive 9. So remember that least is on the left, and this is on page 5 of your notebook. Least is on the left, so if we're going greatest to least, that means we need to be starting on the right. So 9 is our biggest number, then 7, then 0. Now then we cross over into the negatives, and yes, negative 10 looks bigger than negative 8, but remember, we just have to keep going in order. Negative 8 is next. Negative 10 is actually our smallest number. Think about owing somebody $10. That would be the worst case scenario. And it's actually better to only owe $8. Okay, question number 4. It says, answer the following questions about the Texans plays. They lost 20 yards on their first play. The absolute value of that would be blank. Okay, so first let's talk about where we can find this. So absolute value and opposites is on page 4 of your notebook. I want you to, if you're following along with me, we would want to underline the word lost. Lost is a negative. That means they're going backwards 20 yards. So that would be negative 20. But they're asking us for the absolute value. And we know that absolute value is the distance from 0. And because it's a distance, it is always positive. So the absolute value would just be 20. The next one says they gained 15 yards. Okay, so that's going to be a positive 15. Gaining, they're going in the right direction. But we want to know the opposite of that, and the opposite of positive is negative. So the answer here would be negative 15. Okay, 4 more questions on the back. Number 5, converting an improper fraction to a mixed number. So first of all, this is on page 2 of your notebook. And on page 2, it tells you to divide using Tybo, top in, bottom out. So that means we're going to divide. Long division. Our top number or our numerator is 17. Our bottom number or our denominator is 3. And we're going to go ahead and divide. So 3 cannot go into 1 because it's too big. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 there. But 3 can go into 17 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. We subtract and get 2. When you get your remainder, you stop. And remember, we can draw this arrow that goes all the way around because that's going to help us remember the order. So it's 5 2/3. So 5 wholes and 2/3 left over. Because remember, 3 goes into 17 5 whole times, 2 left over, denominator stays the same. Okay, up next we have coordinate graphing. You can find coordinate graphing in your notebook on page 6. And the first thing they're asking us a lot of stuff. So they're asking us what the coordinates of point A would be. So we go over to negative 3. Remember, it's always x, comma, y. So we have to use the x coordinate first. That's negative 3. Then it goes up to positive 2. And then it asks us what quadrant that is in. So remember that quadrant 1 is the one you learned in 5th grade, the positive numbers only. And then it goes counterclockwise. So this would be quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So point A is located in quadrant 2. Now we want to know how many units point C is from point D. Units is just how many spaces away, basically. So point C to point D, we go 1, 2. So it's 2 units. And it is 2 units vertically. So if it went this way, that would be horizontally. But this one is 2 units away vertically. And then the y coordinate of point E. So point E is right here at negative 4, negative 3. But the negative 4 is the x coordinate. We are only wanting the y coordinates. So that would be negative 3. Okay, and then just make sure you know what the different quadrants are. Make sure you know how to find something a certain number of units away and all of that good stuff. Okay, number 7. Complete the table to arrange the players in order from highest score to lowest score. So highest to lowest, which is greatest to least. We know we have to start with the one that is the ones that are positive because positives are going to be higher. So these 2 right here are only positive. So we know that 710 is bigger than 325. That part's easy. Now these are big numbers. We're not going to be able to draw a number line going that far. So you have to kind of envision your number line. If you are starting up at 710 and you're going down to 325, and then you get to 0, when you get below 0, negative 100, negative 200, negative 300, negative 400, etc. So negative 135 is going to be what you would get to first. Then you'd keep going down to negative 240. And then at the lowest, you would get down to negative 400. And again, this is on page 5, just like that other one we did. Okay, last question. Lisa had 4 3/4 pizzas left over after a party. What is 4 3/4 as an improper fraction? So 4 3/4 is a mixed number, and they want it as an improper fraction. And you can find that on page 2. And the strategy that we learned for that is called MAD. So multiply down here, and then add, and then our denominator stays the same. So 4 times 4 is 16. Then we take 16 and we add 3 to that. That gives us 19. And then, like I said, our denominator stays the same. So 19/4 would be our answer there. Okay, I hope this was helpful to you. Rewatch this or any of my other videos if you need help, and I hope you do great on tomorrow's test.